Hi, and welcome to the Planet Driven Brands podcast. In this show, we will be discussing with our guests how brands they represent can help in the drive to build a better, more sustainable and safer planet. We will highlight brands as drivers for change and the role they play as influencers. How will brands positively impact the planet and its environment? This is what we're going to find out. Do brands actually have any responsibility to change? The Planet Driven Brands podcast, episode 38. Today's guest is Brad Vanstone, founder of Willicroft, and today we're going to be talking about plant-based cheese. Hi Brad, thanks so much for joining us. I wonder if you could give us a quick introduction.
Sure. So my name's Brad Vanstone, founder of Willicroft. So I'm originally from the UK, but now based out in Amsterdam. And Willicroft is a plant-based cheese company, but we take our roots from my grandparents' dairy farm in Devon, which was also called Willicroft. So we're trying to create plant-based cheese, but using traditional practices and processes.
Brand's responsibility to the planet and your thoughts.
So, I mean, if you look at the origins of a company, they were initially created back in the UK in sort of 1860s, around about then. And it was for purpose, so to help society as a whole. So I think if we look at their original form, I think that's what we need to be reverting back to. So I think if a company isn't contributing in some way to something which eventually can become net positive, then I question does it really have a use? So I think the brand's purpose is absolutely fundamental to what every company should be doing.
And what about the role of consumers within that?
Yeah, I think you've got three main parts. You've got government, you've got companies, you've got consumers. Everyone should play their part, but I think sometimes we leave too much in the hands of the responsibility of the consumer. And I think actually right now we need more kind of pressure from or more action from governments, and then more pressure on companies. I do definitely think that individuals can make a difference. And I hear it a lot, people saying, well, I'm just one person out of 7 billion. What can I actually do? But if you do change and you do start to take steps, it can often have a really big ripple effect.
You're right, because if 7 billion people took one step each, that's 7 billion steps, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, there's that classic story of you smile at one person and the whole world is smiling. That it's something you hear when you're growing up, but it's true. I mean, we all have it within our power to make small steps, and they don't have to be giant ones. It can start really small.
You mentioned your journey from your family-owned farm. I wonder if you could expand more on that.
Sure. So my grandparents had this farm from the 50s in Devon, in the UK, predominantly a dairy farm. But growing up, I did kind of pick up quite a bit on, firstly how to make milk, but then a little bit on terms of how to make cheese. So a lot of kind of very formative moments. And I also really gained an understanding of the importance of a very kind of circular system on the farm. So they fed all the animals predominantly from grass that was grown on the farm. There was a lot of efforts to really make sure that there was a lot of biodiversity on the farm in terms of the hedgerows and the forest that they planted. So it was a very kind of immersive environment. And I think kind of everyone's kind of ideal version of what a farm is, it kind of was that. And then when I moved to Amsterdam, I started to eat a mainly plant-based diet. Found it really easy to give up meat and milk, actually, just because of the quality of the replacements. But cheese was the final hurdle. And so I started to experiment at home, and I was using some knowledge that I'd gathered over the years. And initially it was very much a pet project. I had no intention of turning it into what it's become today. But I quite quickly actually really found it very kind of formative and very immersive. And I loved the process of making the cheeses. And so it kind of has spiraled out of control from there.
So give me the process that you use.
So you've got two types really of plant-based cheese maker at the moment on the market. You've got people that are really just mimicking it by just looking to recreate structure or meltability, but not really focused on the taste so much, or or a traditional cheese making process. Then you've got more artisanal producers that are trying to actually replicate many of the processes that cheese has. The one ingredient we can't replicate is casein. That is something that a lot of companies are working on at the moment from a molecular sort of basis. But in terms of other ingredients, casein is the only one in the world that functions in the way that it does, and it comes from an animal. So that is one part of the process we can't replicate. But essentially, you start by making a milk, and then you're looking to replicate casein with certain starches or binding agents. And then from there, you're looking to create flavor. So you might be adding a culture, you might be adding ingredients that are fermented, you might be adding certain yeast and other flavorings. So that's kind of the basic process. And then there's obviously certain structural parts that can be adjusted. So you might be reducing the amount of water, or letting it aerate. So there's a lot of crossover essentially when doing the artisanal.
I'm interested in casein. Is that going to be replicatable like a cultivated meat? And if so, was it sort of thing you would work with?
So it absolutely will be available, and I don't think we're talking too long a period of time. Would we use it? That's something that we are open to exploring. I think for us as a company, the most important thing is that we're contributing to a more equitable planet and trying to achieve net positivity. If this enables us to get there with a better product, I'm definitely open to considering it. I think the whole kind of argument about going vegan is we have to look at it from the perspective of, well, there's actually still a lot of ways in which you can still cause harm with plant-based ingredients. I think to presume that dairy is bad and plant-based ingredients are good is looking at things from way too simplistic a kind of way. And I think we have to, be questioning plant-based projects just as much as we are dairy, because ultimately that's going to create a better system, a better product. Just everything will be improved from that. So I think if there are no kind of animals being harmed, if the emissions are being reduced, if it's making a better product, why wouldn't we at least explore it?
Yeah,
I think it's really exciting how much is on the market, but I do also think that we've ridden that wave without maybe thinking about certain consequences that we were with things like dairy. And it's part of the process, of course. But I think the next stage, everyone is demanding more. Is it nutritionally viable? Is it genuinely creating lower emissions? Are there any social issues at the end of that supply chain? Like, all those questions are super important.
Give me some more information about Willicroft.
Yeah, so I think firstly, everything starts with taste and the actual product itself with food. So we pride ourselves on making plant-based cheese for dairy cheese lovers. So whilst we really want to reach out to the vegan community, it's still relatively small in comparison to the rest of the community. So getting people who really love their cheese, not necessarily to drop cheese, but to perhaps replace our feta with the dairy feta, those kind of steps are really important. Achieving net positivity, as I mentioned, is really important as a company. So at the moment, we're measuring our emissions. I think it starts there. And from there, we'll be able to actually have a date in mind when we can achieve that point. We used to base all of our recipes on cashews, but we've now switched onto white beans, because our initial LCAs basically showed us that cashews were by far the highest emitting ingredient. So we're now this October actually releasing all of our new cheeses, and they're based on white beans, white lentils, or chickpea protein or rice. So beans and pulses as a kind of category. I think other really important projects to us are actually looking to reach out a hand to the dairy industry and create some kind of transition. Again, going back to a little bit of what I described before, I think it's very important that we don't just point fingers at the industry, we actually help it, because it is easy to call it out. There is a hell of a lot wrong with it, but it's maybe harder to actually give solutions to dairy farmers to actually change. So next year, for example, one reason we switched onto beans and pulses is we can grow them more locally. So we're growing 50 acres of white beans here in the Netherlands. If that goes well, we will do that at scale, and look to bring all of our supply chain over here for the beans and pulses. So I think those are some of the really important projects to us over the next few years.
Make Mother Nature your CEO.
Mm.
Go on, explain that to us.
Yeah, so I think last year we started to have some internal conversations about making Mother Nature our de facto leader. And the reason behind that is we have seen a lot of companies who have started out with great intentions, but have become beholden to investors' whims, or they've got distracted with just looking after the bottom line or whatever it might be. We're still relatively young as a company, and so we can still do things, we still make changes with relative ease. And we think it's really important that we really put some very kind of clear impact locks in place now, so that whoever runs Willicroft in the future is beholden to, first and foremost, creating a company that has a net positive impact. And so we kind of struck this idea of putting Mother Nature as our leader. And what that basically means in practice is, whenever we are faced with a difficult decision, we internally ask ourselves, is this genuinely the best option? Is this genuinely going to be contributing to a better planet? And so it's very simplistic in that sense. If it's not, then we look to make a different decision and wait until we have a better answer. So we are actually going to be locking this in to our corporate governance over the next year or so. We're looking at things like impact boards, certain thresholds for certain expenditures, and really kind of, making sure that it's safeguarded. And then this year we called on companies to also follow us and join us on this campaign. So we now have 15 companies signed up, a huge difference in industry, and they are committed, like we are, to cementing the role of Mother Nature. So to start with, we've asked them to do three things: appoint Mother Nature to show 3 instances of where they've been beholden to the planet, so they've made impact related decisions, and then to sign up to an industry recognized accreditation over the next 2 years. So that could be B Corp, that could be fair trade, that could be organic.
That's nice. I like that. Good way to finish. Thanks so much for your time. It's been really interesting.
Very happy to speak. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Brad.
Nice fun. Thank you, Nick.
All the best. Cheers.
Cheers.
This category is so exciting. There's so much more to come from it. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. The Planet Driven Brands podcast is the brainchild and copyright of Nick Jones and is broadcast in partnership with theplanetsagency.com. Planets Agency is a partnership of consultants and communications experts. We build planet-driven brands. During the series of shows, we'll be hearing from more experts, and we would love for you to be involved. Please do comment or come back to us with questions. We'll be happy to engage. If you wish to be notified when our episodes are broadcast, please subscribe on the website. If you'd like to be part of the show, we'd love to hear from you. We look forward to many more entertaining episodes. Thanks again for listening.